Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on March 22nd, 2023 at approximately 4:30 p.m. PST. Now, I return to this world for one primary reason, and that is to remind people that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. I bill myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer are the same tools I personally use in my day to day life. And the philosophies of life I talk about are the exact same philosophies that I guide my own life by. Now, before I get into anything, we'll start off with welcoming Henry into the room, coming in with the gold. Now, we're going to be taking a look at today. We're looking at the question of how do you prepare for the loss of a loved one even before they are set to pass? There are so many things that so many people overlook in this respect that it is kind of wise to take a look at. Nathan, how you doing? I'm glad you could join us. You're coming in with the silver there, Nathan. So today is going to be hectic for me, primarily because of the fact that as soon as I get done this show, and like we get done this stream at 6:30 PST, and at 7 o'clock PST, we are going on into the rabbit hole with Raven. Okay, and if you look above, somewhere in here, we have the actual link to it. I believe it's the one almost at the top. Joe, how you doing? Glad you could join us. You have come in with the bronze. There are so many times when somebody is passing away that nobody looks at. We all know people are going to pass or the loved ones are going to go. Sometimes we get warning, sometimes we don't. Okay. But there are ways of dealing with it ahead of time. And this is something that really boils down to communication. Okay. The reality of it is far easier to say your farewells and to ask any questions that you feel you haven't asked, or tell a loved one something you feel you haven't told them yet. It is so much easier to do it before they pass. Now, I made the mistake, and I'm hoping that this little message will stop you guys from making the same mistake. I did not actually clear everything off the deck with mom and dad, or for that matter, either of my two brothers, before they passed. This said, it's very important that you understand if you've got a loved one that's older than you or that's younger than you, it doesn't matter. You don't worry about their chronological age. Because unfortunately, eternity, well, welcome to the room. You've come in with honorable mention. If you do not tell people how you're feeling, rest assured most corporeals are not controlled telepaths. Terry, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Hope your day's been going well. Most of us, what we do is we go and we turn a blind eye to it, going, I know they're going to pass, but I'm not ready to say goodbye, because if I say farewell now, it's like I'm giving them permission to go. That is not the case. Now, unfortunately, I'm not asking you to take fortunately, I'm not suggesting you take my word for it. Okay, hopefully this will sink in at least to a degree. Okay, if you haven't told a loved one what you feel about them, even if it's a question of being upset that something wasn't done, okay, or that you didn't have a given connection, even if that's what it is, do yourself a favor and come right out and address the situation before they are gone. Okay, now we will talk at a later date about how to deal with them once they're gone, but let's start with in the here and now while they're still breathing. Now, do understand something very important. When I'm referring to a loved one, I mean brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, aunts, uncles, whatever, in the way of your species family line. But this also is indicative, is relevant when we are talking about close friends, i.e., the people you choose as family. Now, these may be different species: cats, dogs, plants. Maybe you've got a favorite rock that's been with you forever and a day. Okay. Maybe this is a situation, it's just been there all along. I think I figured out where a missing stone of mine is. That's another issue altogether. Where is it? Right there. See, this is a stone that was gifted to me. This one in particular was gifted to me some almost 25 years ago. Okay. That is moldavite, the only gem quality stone, okay, from outer space. The only type of stone from outer space that is gem quality. Now, no, I'm not about to get it turned into a gem. I may one day get it turned into a hanging pendant or necklace, but time will tell on that. If I do that, it will be wrapped in sterling silver. That much is obvious. Which, by the way, isn't an entirely bad idea. But I do need to talk to somebody to get it done because I'm not silly enough to do it myself. But when we are talking about people, about how to cope with the passing of a loved one, so many of us, what we do is we sit there and we know they're passing, and so we don't say a thing because we don't want to admit they're passing. Okay. You notice whether you admit it or not, they still end up passing away. It's kind of like whether you desire to agree that gravity works or you don't. Doesn't matter. It still hurts like a monkey if you fall down a set of stairs. Now, in all fairness, the fall does not hurt people. It's those sudden stops on the way down the stairs that causes all the pain, or that sudden stop at the bottom of a long drop. And the nice part about it is you don't have to agree that gravity works. You don't have to believe that death is going to occur. The body will, in this day and age, the body will wear out. And the reason for that is, in all fairness, it's not just the atmosphere or the toxins you're putting into your body in the way of actual foodstuffs. It is also brought about by the negativity you draw with you. If you are buying into a fear of death, you will draw it that much faster to you. That's incorrect. You won't exactly bring it faster to you. What you'll end up doing is spending your life worrying about when you're going to die or when a loved one is going to pass, and you're going to miss out on the joys of living. That's the drawback. And I've made the mistake myself. Okay. Matter of fact, it's gotten really carried away on occasion. But what I am quite willing to tell you is that now is the time to start preparing for it. If you've got a loved one, and especially with people my age, many of us have parents that are, usually you're looking at 20, 25 years older. Well, this would mean if my parents were still alive, they would be sitting in their mid 80s. Okay. Now, my parents both died when they were 81. Okay. And in my mother's case, she actually died on her 81st birthday, right at the end of it. So what you do first and foremost, if you've got something you have not told a loved one, okay, if you've been biting your tongue because you don't desire to admit they're going to pass, or you don't desire to face the reality that they're going to pass, okay, I'm going to caution you. Ultimately, it boils down to put your head down and push forward and talk to them. It is so much easier and so much less regret that will come with it if you talk to them before they go. Okay, now I will put it to you this way. If you don't talk to them before they go, and some of you won't get this message until it is too late. In other words, until your loved one is already passed, often without any functional warning, aside from, oh, they're getting older, so therefore they will eventually die. Okay, but if that happens, okay, there are 3 ways of talking to your loved ones that work out great. Now, personally, I like the third one better, but then I'm a little twisted. Okay, but the 3 ways to deal with it, if your loved one has already passed and you didn't get a chance to talk to them, or you didn't take the opportunity to talk to them, okay, get a picture of them if you can, a physical photograph if you can. Just bring their picture to the front of your mind, okay, as soon as possible, and you sit down quietly in a place where you're comfortable, and you simply talk to them out loud, just as though they are right there. Now, I will tell you, when you go to talk to them, the 2 most common ways for them to communicate is by creating a tingly feeling either across the back of your neck or across your forearms. Okay, a tingly feeling much like your foot just waking up. Okay. No, I can relate to that all too well, Joe. When I was still with my wife, we literally buried 5 cats. No, 2 of the dogs got given away. 5 cats. Come to think of it, we didn't actually bury any of the dogs. We managed to find them new houses for a couple of reasons. But 5 cats or 7? Might have been 7 cats. 1, 3, 7 cats while I was still with her. Okay, now in her case, she had a real brilliant idea. She had them cremated and she still got the piece and got the ashes. To each their own. Okay, but you are absolutely correct. When you've got to choose to let somebody go in that fashion, very difficult. And many people are now facing the position of having to choose to let their parent go. Okay. I never did understand why, and this is just a personal note, why if a pet is in pain and having a lousy quality of life, why are we permitted to let them go? Or more to the point, why were we permitted to let them go and not take care of our own family? Well, from my understanding, you're now permitted to take care of your own family. Okay, if they're having no quality of life, let them go. But the first method, you bring that picture to the forefront of your mind, sitting in the privacy of your own home. Okay, and then you talk out loud. Okay, you talk out loud as though they're sitting right there. But if you're asking them questions, ask them questions that can be answered in a yes or no fashion. Okay, and the more clear the answer can be, the more clear you are with the question, the stronger the answer will be. Okay, as in a much stronger tingly feeling or a much stronger buzz, if you will. Some of you may hear the buzz more than feel it. Either way, it works. Now, you in all likelihood will debate whether what you're sensing is your imagination or whether it's real. I cannot give you a real functional answer to that, except where it comes to that feeling. I always say, go with your instincts. If it feels real, it is. Okay. Ultimately, your mind and your body have to sort things out and essentially capitalize on what they imagine something is like in order to formulate a picture of it. Okay, so that's the first method. The second method involves doing the same thing, but pick a graveyard. Doesn't matter what graveyard, your parents don't, or the loved one, even if it's a pet and is not buried there. Adam, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Now, from what I understand, the roads up there have been a little interesting. So do make sure you pay more attention to the road than you do to what we're up to. This will be posted later, obviously. But that being said, absolutely, we are glad to have you listening in. Now, the second method, go to a graveyard. Doesn't matter whether your pet, your plant, or your person is buried in that particular graveyard. Okay. Oh, nice. Yeah, we were having that. We were having the 7 degrees here in Kelowna as well. Went out for a walk in my t-shirt today. This is great. It's so much warmer than going out when it's like 3 below, 3 above out. But the second method is you go to the gravesite, and again, take the picture with you. Doesn't even matter if you're at the gravesite of your own family, of whoever it is you're going to talk to. Nobody will bother you. Okay. It is normal to see people in a gravesite sitting down, talking out loud to what appears to be a gravestone. They don't check and see ID. They don't check to see if you're at that specific person's gravesite. The thing is, in a graveyard, it's not that the veil is thinner, but it is expected that people do this, and therefore nobody questions it. So you can sit there, and absolutely, if you end up in tears, so be it. Tears have never been an indication of being unmanly or immature. They are an overload of emotion. I get more concerned when somebody doesn't have said emotion or doesn't permit themselves to express it. So that's the second way to do it. And again, when you're talking, if you're asking them a question, ask them in a way that they can answer with a clear yes and no. Things like, Mom, are you okay? Okay. Did you get to where you were expecting to get? Okay. Now I will tell you, most of the people going over are not expecting what they run into over there, but the long and the short of it is, whether they are human or something else, they all end up in the same place. Okay. They all end up in between lives. Okay. But you ask them in terms that can be answered absolutely as a yes or a no. Now, here's the thing. If you get that tingly feeling, or more to the point, when you get that tingly feeling, okay, that is their usual method of saying yes. The stronger the tingling, the more emphatic that yes is. Okay, if you're not getting anything back, the odds are you're not going to get it. Okay, and the odds are the answer is no. But here's the kicker to it. You can call it your imagination and question whether or not you're making any headway with it. Or you can turn around and go, no, it's not my imagination. This is the reality of what I'm going through. Okay, this is a real communication line. Now, I cannot tell you which one you're going to choose to look at it as. I will tell you from my standpoint, that tingly feeling is a definitive yes from the person passing over. Okay. Now, the thing is, there are a lot of questions that people really miss asking out. Okay. Like, for instance, how many of you have lost a loved one Well, you technically don't lose them. You know where they went. They've been cremated or they're stuck in a hole somewhere. Okay. I've seen very few people that when they pass away, some force comes down and grabs the physical body and lifts it up in heaven. Doesn't happen. It's the soul that goes there. Most of you, in all likelihood, refuse to see the soul. Okay, but that's the second method of dealing with it. The third one is the one that I personally like, but then I'm a bit of a sheep disturber, I think. You take a picture of whoever the loved one is. And like I said, you don't have a photograph. There's no functional problem. Just bring a picture to the forefront of your mind. But you pick a restaurant that you're comfortable in and sit there and talk to the person across the table. Understand the other people won't see that person either. But it does give them an interesting thing to think about. Okay, of course, they may take a look at you and think you're completely nuts, but, my personal response to that, is no, I'm not completely nuts. There's parts missing. Obvious point in fact, my eyes don't work entirely well. So, that's a part of me that isn't working quite right. Okay, but when you're looking at it, I encourage you, if you have not done so recently, talk to your loved ones, talk to your friends, your family, who, especially those getting on in age, that it's a time that's going to happen. Now, to the younger ones, I encourage you to do so anyway, because what happens if, God forbid, they pass away early? Okay. I knew of a kid. He was 19 years old. He was at his 19th birthday. Went to walk across the backyard, and just like that, he hit the ground. He was dead. Okay. Because he had an aneurysm, and all of a sudden he was gone. Terry, I don't think I saw you. Oh, matter of fact, I missed a couple here. Or did Eternity come in earlier? No, here we have Nathan Joe. Eternity came in. Terry, I don't think I saw you coming in. But that being said, welcome aboard. Glad you could join us. As you can tell, I still miss people coming through the door. Okay. Now, these are the reason I like this last method is because, well, frankly, it does cause a bit of a stir. Myself, I just sit there and quietly talk anyway. Okay. But I do my best not to draw an absolute attention to the situation. Okay. I still find it complicated when people start telling me that I know that they like what I'm talking about. I grew up with people going, "You're sounding absolutely insane. Knock off the discussion." Okay. And, I will admit, a lot of what I talk about, especially when we start getting into the metaphysical world, as in just one of those neat little things, somebody passing away. Now, about 30 years ago, I have no idea how they figured this out, but a bunch of scientists got together and figured out that once you took into consideration gas and waste release when an individual dies, okay, even when you take that into consideration, there are roughly 2 ounces that are not accounted for. These 2 ounces are the soul, the driver of the vehicle, the corporeal body that has now stopped working. Okay, so this is where the real challenge comes in. Yeah, but here, the neat thing there, Nathan, is I've been to 3 so-called professional psychiatrists, licensed, trained by humans. 3 of them have told me my mind works absolutely perfectly, except I've got very low tolerance for what I consider stupid people, which is not a good way to be, by the way. I just keep running into snags with that kind of a setup. Now, somebody just stinged my setup here. Oh, there we are. Where are we here? And this is one of those ones I kind of have to answer. So I do that just, and I know I get interrupted and I'm like, okay, yes, I'm live, but guess what? This is the way my life has always been, as it were. Now, the neat part about that, about the way life works, is this. If you take the time to talk to your loved ones, talk to your friends, talk to the people you hate, don't matter to me. Communication is the key to making this world a better place. Okay, and it is going to require the concerted effort of all of us. Okay, but the neat part about it is that when we choose to put that effort in, we can actually make this world, we can draw this world into a much tighter community. Okay, because remember, doesn't matter how much money you've got, doesn't matter who you voted for, doesn't matter who you're crawling into bed with. Okay, you're all going to die at some point. Some of us just get more practice. You know, to date, I've got 9 confirmed by other people, and a 10th one where I've literally, my heart has stopped totally. Okay, and a 10th one that is still in question. And in all fairness, it'll remain that way. You know, it will remain in question because the people that could answer it wouldn't recall it anyway, probably by choice. I mean, let's face it, especially working in the medical field, who wants to really remember the number of times that somebody passes away and then gets up and leaves? You know, it does happen. I'm not the only one it's happened to, but it is kind of an interesting setup. Okay, now I'm going to take a half a break out here before this gets way too loud. You planning on being heard online? Like I said, that would only take a moment. But no, when you think about it, if we actually open up and communicate and ask the questions, what do you know, especially with loved ones, ask them how they would like the final days to run out, or what they would like to see you as an individual accomplish. Now, do understand something very critical. A parent going, I'd like you to become very successful, is a bit broad. Okay, and it doesn't mean you have to do that. Okay, but it will tell you whether you're on the track that they would like. But remember, any way you do this, any way at all, when you're dealing with talking to the loved ones before they go, you are still the one that's going to have to live your life for you. And hanging on to the idea of what they desired before they went isn't necessarily going to enable you to enjoy your life. Okay, you've got to pick a life you're content with. Okay, you know, that is the critical factor from that standpoint. Now, I don't know if that makes sense to you guys. You know, like some of you have lost loved ones. Most of you probably have. More of you will have lost a loved pet. Okay, or a good, you know, an older friend. Hopefully, not so many of you have lost parents. But it really boils down to open up the communication lines. Maggie, how are we doing? Glad you could join us. You know, open the communication lines, especially if you are even somewhat estranged from somebody you know. I will tell you this. Okay, I know from my standpoint it happened. We had complications with with my relations with my parents before they went. I did not take the time to patch those relationships together. And net result, I'm left without being able to do so. I'm encouraging you to open up and talk to those you've been estranged from. Put the negative past to rest, because the reality is you cannot change it anyway. Okay. Now, most people that go to a funeral, a lot of the funerals are laid out as, what did we lose? Let's remember the fact that we've lost this loved one. I really enjoy the way the Irish look at it. Let's use the passing of a loved one as a reason to get bombed. Now, this is not necessarily a good idea, at least as far as the overindulgence of alcohol goes. But having a party is a much better way of celebrating somebody's life than having a cry fest. Okay, now of course that is just my opinion. Might be yours too, for all I know. The way I figure it, I told my kids, is I figure what I'm going to do is have a wake about a week before I die. I figure it's going to come out of my estate anyway. I may as well be there to enjoy the party. Now, of course, for me, my party may be really, really small because there's only 3 or 4 people that would be there. Okay. Because let's face it, I just don't have that big of an array of friendships that I can lay hands on. But the way to prepare, absolutely, talk to your friend, talk to the loved ones, especially in the case of parents or siblings, if they've got something that you desire to have of theirs when they pass. Okay, come right out and talk to them about it. Okay, talk to everybody about it and see if you can get it. Okay, so I mean, the reality is this is easier when they're still there, when they're still around. Okay, and most of you are going to look at somebody passing and going, I just don't want to look at the fact they're going to die. This is just part of a normal, I call it normal because pretty much everybody goes through it. Okay. It's pretty much part of a normal routine where life and death are concerned. Even most off-worlders and ancient races have the same idea. They've still got that issue of how do you deal with a loved one when they all of a sudden pass. And I'm not even counting the ones that are going off as first responders, as military. They're going off and putting themselves deliberately straight in front of the line of fire. Okay. Because the reality is, and my hats go off to the people that are willing to stand in front of a conflict and set up, so I don't have to. Sorry, guys, I'm a pacifist. I'll admit that wholeheartedly. Found out the other day just how badly I've gotten where it comes to the reclusivity. Avi May, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Well, that didn't leave me a lot of time to read. But no, the more we celebrate the enjoyment of life and the connection between people, the better off we are, quite frankly. Okay, and the stronger the society will become. Okay, enough of that, because I hate chewy coffee. I really do. It just does not impress me. That's a good way to look at it there, Avi May. Avi's just saying, hi, everyone. When my loved ones die, I call it a graduation. And in a lot of ways it is, because you're moving from this life to the next one. And it's kind of funny because when I was learning about astrology, about Western astrology, my mentor turned around and told me that a natal chart really boils down to a report card from your last life of what you're coming into this life with. Okay, it doesn't dictate what you have to do. It just tells you what path you're currently on. Okay, But the fact he laid it out, he laid it out as a report card, which is usually affiliated with a graduation. Works out kind of conveniently. Now Nathan here is going, I call it going to the next level. Okay, you've been gaming too long. But you are essentially correct. Hey Shadow, how you doing? Glad you could join us. The reality is when somebody's getting ready to go, there's a couple of emotions that are common. Okay, and they don't always go hand in hand. But there's this sense of loss because all of a sudden that person you've been relying on is no longer the one you're no longer able to rely on them. Okay. And it stands to reason, as this happens, if you've got siblings, as the older siblings pass away, you suddenly get put into the eldest position. Oh, there you go. Not a problem there, Shadow. It's funny, I get done this live stream, and half an hour after this one, I'm going into the rabbit hole with Raven. Okay. So hopefully she'll show up here tonight. I know that we've already confirmed it's going to happen, that we are going down the rabbit hole. But I am glad you joined us there, Shadow. But the reality, if we look at the end of a life as the graduation to another life, good night, Abby. You have a good night, and hope everything goes well for you. Yep, bad for my health. Gonna eventually kill me, I'm sure of it. Mind you, I'm more convinced that my heart just suddenly stopping is going to be a bigger problem. Of course, I love the way the Drow put it, as in the Dark Elves of D&D, Dungeons and Dragons. The Dark Elves, they simply look at it and go, all death is natural, because naturally a dagger in the back of your heart will kill you. Yes, that's sick and twisted. Sorry, brain goes in weird places on occasion. But I'm pretty certain Shadow can relate to that side of things. But when you're looking at packing things up, yeah, definitely, definitely you pay more attention to driving than you do to what people are saying. Very definitely a necessity. But when we are looking at dealing with somebody that is passing away or that has already passed away, the more open you are about what you're feeling, the easier you'll find it to cope with later. Yes, it may mean your emotions go into disarray for a little bit. Okay, that one I'm just going to hand over here. Okay, like I said, so I've got actually, as it turns out, I found out just the other day. Yeah. Yeah, I love the ones that tell you that, Shadow. The way to a man's heart is through his stomach. These guys are going in the wrong direction. Or more to the point, a more convoluted one. But you get the idea. Like I said, it's a twisted way of looking at the world. But no, that phone, my other half finally showed me how to set it up. So that even if I've got it turned off, critical numbers can get through to me. Okay. But I call them critical because we're talking family. Or family intended. As in with my other half. I am fully intent on turning my other half into my wife. Okay. Of course, it will depend on her getting up here and her saying yes. Hate that. So let's not do that. But when we are looking at the difference between this life and the next one, I just want to check something here. If I remember correctly, on Saturday, we're going to take this whole discussion one step further. Because right now, we're looking at how to deal with somebody passing away. On Saturday, we're going to deal with how to prepare for your next life. What can you do now to organize your next life and get a better run at it? And of course, then the fun part, how are we going to prove it works? Now, I'll make that one a short discussion. I'm not. Okay, I will tell you the methods I'm talking about are the same ones I personally use. Okay, now I was fortunate when my father passed. I was fortunate enough to be the one to give him last rites. Yes, the reason for that is quite simple. Okay, because of the fact my father was a very religious man, like he was a wholehearted believer in God in the whole 9 yards. The fact that I became a minister, he had forgotten about it. And while he was laying on his deathbed, I reminded him because he was trying to say something, and I looked at him and I said, Dad, in case you forgot, I am actually a registered minister. Okay, an ordained minister. Now, the answer to your guys' question is I went through the Universal Life Church down in California. And the reason I went through them was because of one little itty-bitty factor. Okay, they came up with the idea, and the way they presented it was, we don't care what you call God. We don't care what the name is. We care whether you treat each other properly. Okay, to me, that was all it took. But when I reminded Dad, and my mom for that matter, that I was actually an ordained minister, Dad relaxed right quick like, and we managed to get him last rites before he quit communicating with everybody. Worked out kind of nicely. I keep looking up at this. Now, this, I tell you, this is not a good drink. This is not called grenadine and water. This is called Dawn soap and water. Great for cleaning brushes, great for making you sick. But I use it for paintbrushes. That's what's called your useless piece of information for the day. Okay, but when we are looking at the life after this one, okay, it is absolutely imperative that you take the time to talk to those that you are attached to and really get an understanding and help them understand how much of a loss or how much of a difference it's going to make for you when they pass away. Okay, and yes, I have complications with my own family I have to sort out. Okay, because there have been some discrepancies that I've got to deal with before they turn around and pass away on me. Funny part about it is I'm likely to die again before they are. I'm just not likely to stay that way. You know what to do. And this is going to sound absolutely weird. Write a letter to the loved one. If you know they're passing, write them a letter and absolutely put it in the coffin they're being burned in, that they're being buried in. Doesn't matter. Okay. The intent of that letter will go with them. And you'll have to take my word for this unless you've already been dead and seen it happen. Okay. They will take that image of the letter with them and be able to look at it. Okay. And I know that sounds twisted. Can I prove it? Not a snowball's prayer. But some of you may have gone through that. Some of you may have borne witness to that kind of behavior, to that kind of recognition. These are just some of the things that we look at and go, okay, how are we going to move forward? Well, the more you plan it out, the more you put it on paper, okay, the easier it is to make things happen. Now, I'm going to go sideways completely on you guys. Get that out of the way. This neat little book here. I just sent in five more pictures. I've got 4 more after this. Okay, and then I'm done with the pictures. So we are making good headway with it. Okay. I still haven't gone back and looked for the one picture that I do have. Okay. But all in all, we are looking at a interesting situation in as much as whether you're human, feline, dog, mouse, blade of grass, an elemental, as in an actual conglomeration of elemental molecules. Okay, or whether you're an off-world or an ancient race, doesn't matter. You're all going to go through the same thing. This issue of what to do when somebody is passing away is a cross-the-board issue. There is not a race that doesn't deal with it. Of course, many of the reptilian races are really neat from the standpoint of sitting there having dinner and assuming that the loved one dies of natural causes, and I mean as in dies of old age, okay, or dies of injuries that are not poison related. Okay, many of the reptilian races, because of the fact they are somewhat cannibalistic on the whole, as well as carnivorous. You're sitting there, Grandpa drops dead, has a heart attack right there. They go, gee, Grandpa, thanks. It was a great life. Thanks for being here. Toss them up on the table. Dinner served. This sounds cold from a human standpoint. Okay, it really does. Okay. I've always looked at it. I'm just looking back over this thing that Shadow says here, where he says, the way to a man's heart is between the 4th and 5th rib. I've always questioned whether that's the 4th and 5th rib from the top or the 4th and 5th or 5th from the bottom. I will tell you, whichever one it is, you put a knife in there, it's going to cause havoc. But all living entities across the board go through the same concerns. Okay. Is there any way to make the passing easier? No. Because I will tell you, the people who have tried making it easier by doing drugs or doing alcohol didn't work out as well as you might have thought. Well, that was different. But again, guys, if you haven't done so, okay, and you do like the stream, do me a favor, give us a thumbs up, do subscribe to the channel, and share the daylights out of it. Okay, because we are striving to turn this world around, and it's going to require a lot of assistance. Clearly, I'm not going to be able to do this on my own. Okay, but that said, I'm not stopping anytime soon. I'm actually looking at different ways of enhancing things. Don't know how I'm going to pull that off yet. Okay, I do know. Well, tonight's going to be hectic because I get done this in about an hour here. Just a little over an hour. And then at 7 o'clock Pacific time, I'm going on the Raven show. Okay. And hopefully she manages to pop her nose in here. I don't know if she will. At least I hope I've got the link set up top there for you. But when we look at this whole transition period between this life and the next one, okay, communication with your loved ones while they're still alive is the best way to prepare for it, bar none. Okay, because I will tell you, the number of people I've talked to that didn't actually do that, that didn't talk to their loved ones first, were very unhappy and really felt like things got missed out. So I'm just putting it to you this way, with the hope that it actually makes things turn around on a positive side. Okay, so you can avoid that kind of a stress or that kind of disappointment yourself. Something I didn't do. This is why I say I'm not perfect by any functional means. Okay, but it is one of these things that we have to take a look at and go, what are we doing from here? You know, are you going to carry on your life living in regret that you didn't say something to a loved one, or living in peace knowing you said what you felt and now you can carry on moving forward? I will tell you, if you don't do this, you're going to have that neat little problem of going, what if? And in all fairness, that won't be a problem. You'll be able to do that part easy. What do we got here? I'm just looking at a note I made for myself. Oh, okay, that was for Rankworks. Anyway, when you're looking at somebody passing away, first thing you have to realize, and too many people go the route of going, how can you do this to me? How can you leave me behind like this? Got news, most people passing away aren't exactly in a hurry to go. Okay, most people that are passing away, it's more a question of, so much pain. I'm not making any progress at all. I've reached the end of my rope. Okay, which is what triggers the idea of I'm going to go. Now in 1833, yeah, 1833, I reached that point with my own girlfriend at the time. She was murdered, and I forced myself to carry on for 5 years. But after 5 years, I just couldn't take it anymore, or just didn't desire to. Okay, and many of you have unfortunately gone through this sort of thing. Okay, many of you have gone through this concept that there is a problem. Okay, that you're missing something, or if some of you, and when I say some of you are going through this now, understand there are the deceased that are listening in on this. Okay, because they're still picking up the vibration, they're still fresh enough over there, they can still translate what you're saying. So if you're sitting on the foot of the bed that somebody used to be in until they passed away, they are quite likely still able to hear what you're saying. This is why things may feel a little too real when you're talking to them. You're sitting there talking, and all of a sudden you get the smell of a specific cigar brand. Okay, and you go, is that my imagination? Because it just brings my dad back. Okay, it's funny. I have yet to hear somebody say that a cigar smell brings back thoughts of their mother. Okay, I don't know. Maybe women don't smoke cigars as much. Okay, I know my mom didn't smoke cigars. Of course, in all fairness, my mom didn't smoke cigarettes either. Okay, and for that matter, neither did I. But on the other hand, everything else that can be lit, I was smoking. Well, just about. I never did actually smoke a newspaper, although I burned enough of them. But hopefully this is making some semblance of sense regarding how to deal with somebody passing away. And it's absolutely, this is going to sound really cold, but if there is stuff in a loved one's possession that you really do feel attached to, okay, absolutely come right out and tell them. Okay, just maybe, and point out that, at least I hope you point it out this way, that this is for when they pass away. Okay, That's when it has to be, when you've got to look at the reality behind it. Okay. Because if you don't look at it from the standpoint of when they pass away, you're going to end up with a neat little problem. You'll start feeling like you're shoving them under the bus. That is not the case. But the more you prepare for somebody passing, the easier that transition is going to be. Okay, this is one of the reasons why I do strongly encourage you. And yes, this is something I'm going to be contacting my lawyer for within the week, to figure out how to put a will together properly, so that my family doesn't go through the issue of not having a will in place. Okay, you want to show you care about somebody. One of the things that is very strongly encouraged on my part is encourage them to set a will in motion to cut down on the stress. The other thing that is really necessary, and I'm a firm believer in this, you never, 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 if there is any way around it, put a loved one, a child, a sibling, anybody that you're putting into the will, do not make them the executor. I strongly recommend that you pick an accounting company or a law firm, okay, to handle the estate. Okay, now the law firm or the accounting company will already have things in place, so that if they close or if they fold up, all of their files go to another company, and thereby it's still dealt with. But the more prepared you are, and the more open you are about being prepared, the easier it will be to deal with the passing of a loved one. Okay, and I know it's that thing that so many people look at going, but I don't want to look at the fact that mom or dad are going to die. Or I don't desire to look at the fact that I'm going to lose a sibling. Okay, the reality is you don't have to look at it. Totally ignore it. They will pass away anyway, but totally ignore it. Okay, I do encourage you to plan for that stage of your next life, that transitional period. And absolutely, if you're the one getting near your end, in my case, I'm 59. We're at the end of March, so I'm looking a month and a half, I hit 60. Okay, now I may well be here another 40 years. I'm aiming for another 40. I'm aiming for another 87 years, I think. Something like that. Where are we? If we go 2200 minus 1963, yeah, it's 37. 37 years yet that I've got to look at. No, that's not right. I've got to hit 63. Well, 37 from now is just about that. But I personally desire to see the 22nd century in a functionally mobile body. Okay, in this functionally mobile body. And I mean without the addition of, heart valves, replacement organs, and extra limbs grafted on. Well, already missed that. I've already got a plate stuck in here. Okay, and you can't feel it very much. But the more you discuss it, the more you prepare for a loved one passing, the easier it's going to be to cope with it. And this is why I say, make certain that even your odd stuff that you've got, and some of us have odder stuff than others, that's obvious. Okay, but make sure you have it set up in motion so that it's taken care of just in case. It's not really a gamble. Let's face it, you're going to die. One way or the other, it's going to happen. Hopefully, it happens for you in your sleep. Okay, this is just the reality of it from my standpoint. But there's no easy way to say it to deal with it that I'm aware of. Emotionally speaking, even if you figure you're estranged from your parents or estranged from a loved one, when they pass, it's going to be a bit of a jolt. Okay. I actually didn't honestly realize how tightly I was connected to my dad until he passed. It was even a bigger shock when I found out the connection I had with my mom. Okay. But the one that threw me the most was my older brother. I only spoke to my eldest brother. Okay. I only talked to him for 10, maybe 15 minutes once or twice a year. Had done that for decades. And then he goes and dies on me. I still got the last message I sent him because I sent him a text asking him if he was okay because nobody had heard from him for about a week. Well, as it turned out, the problem was he up and died on us. So I mean, that's where that came in. But when you're looking at your life, okay, I'm going back and forth over this, but the reason for that is it's a very important aspect. So if you haven't done so already, even if all you do is take a sheet of paper and on it write down your own, when I die, this stuff goes to that person. Even if that's all you do, and stick it in a secure place where people know where it is. Okay, this will give you a starting place. Okay, to make that transition a little easier for everybody concerned. Okay, hopefully this is making sense. Okay, and for those of you who are worried about a loved one dying, rest assured, nothing to worry about, they will die. Okay, it's not a question of will they die, it's a question of when. And much more importantly, is the question of how good their life is going to be to start with. Okay, now, I did come to the conclusion, where am I here? I was talking to somebody just yesterday, okay, about life cycles of other races. And finally, didn't even dawn on me before, but in the process of talking to them, and this will be included in the expansion, in the second printing, the actual way, and I'm not going to go into the graphic details of it. Sorry, I don't write for adults. Okay, not in that capacity. But I was given a very definitive explanation of the life cycle of the Caboran, okay, of planets. And they do have a definite life cycle. But where it comes to humans, okay, take the time to talk over what's going to happen when you pass or when they pass. Make sure you're as clear as you can get away with. Now, Joe's just written in here, my grandfather, my dad's dad, passed in 1979 from lung cancer. He did go to church, but he was also an alcoholic. So when I was born, November 3rd, 1979, my grandfather was gone, so never knew him. The neat part there, something I'm sure you're aware of this, Joe, the fact that he was a Christian and an alcoholic does not mean he was any less of a Christian. I mean, you think about it, and here we go with the sacrilege thing. Christ himself liked his wine a lot. Okay, whether you want to call him an alcoholic or not, that's your call. But I can tell you, he definitely drank. Okay, quite frankly, it tasted better than the water. Intriguingly enough, that's what got me drinking coffee, was I didn't like the flavor of chlorine. But, with your grandfather, you got to know your grandfather, in all fairness, through your father. Well, it depends on whether it was your mother's dad, your dad's dad. Okay, so you got to see a lot of the way your grandfather was via relayed information by your father, and potentially by your mother as well, from an observational standpoint. Okay, but it's certainly not the same thing as getting to know a grandparent for up close and personal. It really isn't. Okay. But I do feel for you. I was fortunate. I met both of my grandparents. Now, granted, one of them was dead by the time I was born in 63 and he died in 70, so I was 7 when he went. Yeah, that's not entirely a shock. I had an aunt that died like that. And so, of course, when she passed, her grandkids were really young because she passed when she was 42. Sadly, from what I gather, for the same purpose. Okay, from the same cause, as in drinking too much. I question whether it's drinking too much. I mean, you think about it, you drink enough and you're just plain pickled by the time you die. It does have the advantage of if you're buried, it'll preserve you for a while longer. If you're being cremated, it will burn so much hotter. And yeah, I realize that's a little bit of a twisted way of looking at the world, but I don't look at death the same way many people do. That's just the reality of it. But again, whether we are talking sibling, parent, grandparent, some of you are lucky enough to still have a great grandparent floating around. The same thing applies. Talk to them about what you feel about what's going to come after they're gone. Okay. Just to have that bit of closure before they go. Okay. It's just one of those things that if you don't do it ahead of time, you're going to be stuck with the idea of striving to do it after the fact, which I will tell you is a lot more difficult. So from that end, Joe, you seem so much wiser than that. Joe's just got his birthday set in here, right? You seem so much wiser than the age you are. And do take that as a compliment, eh? The reality is the more that you face up to the things that are into those senses of loss, of longing, of, an absentee connection, the more clearly you face up to them and compensate for them ahead of time, the better off you're going to be. Okay. I just know from and because of the number of people I've talked to about it, I will tell you the array of emotions. I've seen everything literally from somebody finding out that their family member was dying and bursting into rib-racking tears and not even being able to stand up. To somebody, I kid you not, I told them their loved one was dying. And I kid you not, this woman stands up, right, and at the top of her lungs, she goes, "Yes!" And I'm looking at this going, not necessarily a sign of a good marriage. Okay. Don't know what the situation was entirely anymore, but she was certainly happy that he was going. But it boils down to the more you talk about, the more you plan for, including the legal paper necessary to take care of funerals, to take care of that side of things. Matter of fact, that is something I've actually got on my list of things to do. The second my brother's estate clears is to have the money put aside to handle the funeral and the burial. Because unfortunately, I don't get it personally. It does not take a whole lot of money to die. Matter of fact, even the brokest pauper will die. Okay, it never made any sense to me why it takes that much money to die. Of course, I'm still a firm believer that the old method of cremating people was a great one, albeit it did leave a bit of a smell in the air. Okay, but from my standpoint, it boils down to this. make certain that you have asked your loved one or your family member what they desire to be done with them and with their stuff before they pass away. The more you have it sorted out, the less stress there is involved in sorting it out afterwards. Okay. And that applies to with people that are going before you and with yourself. Okay. Now, my eldest brother did not set the estate up properly. It's created some interesting stresses. So I intend on putting it in place properly. Oh, heavens, Joe. I'll tell you the secret to that. And it's something I was told when I was just a kid. As long as you remember two things. One, you only ever know enough to know you don't know enough. And two, the more you know, the less you know. As long as you keep those two things in mind, you will find that your brain keeps pushing really well. Raven, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Yeah, well, I presume you got the equipment you needed for tonight. We knew it was going to be touch and go whether you managed to get in here at all. But I do have your link already at the top. At the top of the chat room. At least I hope it's still there. But no, as long as you keep that in mind, you will continue to grow. You will continue to learn. Okay. I'm having trouble dealing with, it was a really heavy duty pill for me to swallow. We're not talking about a large pill. Okay. We're not talking about those normal little things. I'm talking about a pill the size of a horse chestnut. Okay. To realize that I am ill-equipped to deal with the political system in this world and with the governmental and agency shenanigans I see going on. I just don't have the brain for it. Okay. I think a bigger problem is I've got no interest in developing a brain for it. But it was a really hard one to really wrap my brain around. Oh, okay. So you do realize there, Raven, that means that taking this, taking these books and going, hey, take a look at the book. That won't work well. Okay. So we'll have to do other things to go around it. But on that side, I presume the chat room's still going to work. We'll work through it. From that standpoint, the video to me, yes, I prefer it in a lot of ways. I like scaring people with the way I look. It's why I tell people, I make everybody happy. Some people by showing up, most of them by going away. But we'll see what happens. Yeah, I wonder if it stands to reason that if as was said earlier, a couple of days ago, I don't know, maybe a week or two back for all I can tell you. Okay. If it is true that, if we go with the idea that if you don't have trolls in the room, you're not doing something right, or if you're not ticking somebody off, you're not doing it effectively. Wonder if that applies the same as unless you have somebody hang up on the show. Okay. If you don't have somebody doing that, then is that an indicator you're not doing it right? I mean, I look at the whole 9 yards and go, if that's the case, then I hope I continue doing it wrong. But when we look at preparing for the passing of a loved one, or more importantly, okay, Nightmare, how you doing? Glad you could join us. When we're talking about preparing for somebody passing away, the clearer we are with that passing procedure, the more prepared we are, the easier it is to deal with. Even if you're not expecting them to go. As a matter of fact, one of the advantages of talking about it with people before they pass away, even if it's early on in their life, is if they do pass away unexpectedly, it's already dealt with. Okay, that's just the reality behind life. And I don't expect people to realize that that's the way it goes. Okay, at least not on the whole. But hopefully this is making sense to you. And again, guys, and I know I haven't said it tonight, but if you do have questions, even if they are not in the same topic we're talking about right now, absolutely put them in the chat room in all caps. This will get my attention. Hopefully it'll get my attention, and I will do my best to answer the questions that you've got, because obviously I cannot anticipate every question available. Okay, and I certainly don't have enough time to answer every question that's available. Okay, I know when I was a kid, we learned a song that started off with "Don't ever laugh when a hearse goes by." Okay, for you may be the next to die. And it was a whole long song, really twisted idea. Okay, I did not write it. Yes, I'm twisted, but this one I did not write. Okay, but from my way of looking at it, am I looking at the idea of writing things in to help people deal with it? The answer is yes. Okay, intriguingly enough, as a matter of fact, I'm going through that now. Wonder if that's come up or if that's probably later in the book. Okay, I will be dealing with a section because there is a situation coming up near the end of Return to Paradise that I'm going to be dealing with. Technically, the answer there, Joe. Are there Irish elementals? Well, there are elementals in Ireland. If you want to call those Irish, that'll work. But elementals don't actually have a nationality per se. Okay, at least not that I've ever heard of. Or a genetic heritage. But there are definitively elementals and fae all throughout Ireland. Okay, but the elementals there are of the same nature as elementals, like for instance, your water elementals, whether they're in Ireland, Egypt, Africa, or North America, or anywhere else, doesn't matter. They are still water elementals. Okay, even if they're running at 40,000 feet in the air, they're still a water elemental. Okay, but do they take on a nationality per se? The answer is no. Not from anything I've ever heard. Okay. But are there some that are there some individual elementals that will go, I want to live in amongst the Irish people? In that respect, there are definitely some that will choose that. That would be appreciated. If that works, that's great. What I'll do, because I do have them, I do have the picture, most of the pictures right available here, and I'll just if you don't do it before the end of the stream, then I will patch them through to you. Okay, so you can actually get a look at them. Because that part I've done multiple times for people. Okay, and sooner or later, probably later than sooner, I will be getting books moved over into PDF form as well. I was talking to somebody today, and they asked if I was going to get the books done in audio, and the person asked me, "Are you going to do the audio recording yourself?" And I looked at him and I went, "No, not a prayer." I stumble over my own words way too frequently, to try to even make the effort to strive and read a book straight through. You've seen what happens when I strive to read. It doesn't happen well. Okay, but am I going to eventually get them into audio and into PDF form, the answer is yes. Okay. Ultimately, I'm going to have to do things the hard way until I can make a breakthrough. And Lord knows when that'll happen. One thing is for certain, I've quit relying on major corporations for it. That just hasn't worked out well at all. Yeah, I can absolutely do that there, Raven. Not a problem at all. Yeah, once I'm done the stream, I will absolutely get on board and get them over to you. Yo, hey Cam, how we doing? Glad you could join us. Yeah, I mean, this particular topic is one that hits so close to home that so many people overlook. And I've seen it happen where, there's a way I look at it. Having to bury your own child. I don't know if there's anything more heartbreaking. Okay. But it's something we have to look at. It is a possibility we'll have to deal with. And that's going to cause a problem. It's called vertigo. But I think I know what's causing it. So we're just going to stop doing that. I think that's making me dizzy. And no, I did not put any rye in that. Nor rum for that matter, guys. Although I kid you not, this is a total sidetrack. I was watching a video on YouTube one day, and the guy says, he goes, I discovered a gasoline additive that will save you hundreds of dollars in gas. Okay, very inexpensive. And I kid you not, this guy grabbed a bottle that looked just like this. Okay, complete with the coloring. Right, now let's make sure I did that right. Turns it upside down into his gas tank. And he goes, you just add this to the gas tank. It'll save you hundreds of dollars in gasoline. And for those of you that are silly enough to think about it, do not do this, because the reason it'll save you gas mileage is because it'll seize your engine solid. Don't take my word for it, okay? But I recommend you look into it before trying to add that as an additive. This is some of the things that people put on the net. This will save you money. Well, technically, yeah, because a seized engine won't burn gas. Okay. This is one of the things that you have to look at. And yeah, I know, we just went that direction. Problem with my mind is it usually goes that direction. So if I can keep it down to only one way at a time, we're doing good. But take a look at where your life is. Take a look, especially now, no matter how old you are, no matter on if you have kids. Let's say let's say you haven't had kids yet. Even there, take a look at your life and go, how do I desire my life to be the end of my life to be handled, so that my kids, if I have any, or my loved ones, can move forward. Okay. See, the neat part is that when you take a look at that, there are always things that you have to look at. Okay. Or that it's wise to look at. Okay. Remember, karmic law is simple. Energy out, energy in. Meaning, when you look at that, if you desire to make your passing a little easier for those you're leaving behind, and most of you will leave people behind. Unlike that one post I saw years and years before the internet ever came out. This person come up to me and we got talking about, death and that sort of thing. And the guy looks me dead in the eye and he goes, when I die, I desire to die peaceably in my sleep, like my grandmother did, not screaming in terror like the passengers in her car. The idea when you leave this world is to make certain that you leave it in better shape than it was in when you got here. Now ask yourself this: the path you're on right now, is this setting things up to leave this as a better world? Or are you leaving a crater where there used to be a rose garden? Okay. These are just one of those things that I encourage you to look at. Like I said, it is literally a question of working together. We can make this a better world for virtually everybody, but it's going to take the effort of the majority of people to make this happen. There will undoubtedly be those that still desire to have everything going to heck in a handbasket. Okay, you're not going to change everyone out there. Okay, the hard part for me, and I've had a number of conversations with my other half to this end. Okay, because I am committed to doing this, to continuing this stream. Okay, I would love to see it have a bigger impact, and I keep going through these periods where I'm looking at it going, I'm still seeing the world on downhill slide. Okay, and what my other half keeps reminding me of is yes, the massive majority of people are still continuing down this blind alley. Okay, but there are those of you that are out there that are catching up with it and going, okay, I don't have to commit to having a miserable life for the rest of my life. I had a client years ago, volatilely vindictive kleptomaniac. Vindictive and volatile in as much as when I met her, she had been out for a walk. She was living on the street, and she'd been out for a walk. Went to cross on a crosswalk that was lit by a proper light, by a traffic light. Okay, she nearly got run over by a car deciding to cut the corner. Right. So she was very upset with the guy and spent 2 days looking for his vehicle. She knew it was somewhere in the neighborhood. Well, 2 days later, she found it and dropped a Molotov cocktail into the back seat. Understand there was nobody in the car. The car was parked. And she phoned me up because it really bothered her. She'd done that. And I looked at her and I said, well, there is a bright side to this. And she goes, what bright side? I said, well, you were using gasoline, so the fire was bright. But the other issue is you waited till they were out of the car. So yeah, you definitely did damage, definitely a wrong thing. But at least you didn't kill anybody. Now, she went from that attitude to chasing somebody down almost a year later. I worked with her for that long. And almost a year later, she chased a guy down that left his wallet on the bus stop. So she chased him down for 2 blocks till he got off. Okay, and gave him back his wallet. Right. So, I mean, people, they say people never change. Okay, I'll tell you, people change all the time. No matter how rough your life has been, no matter how conflicted you've had it with other people, it is possible for you to change the path it's on and change the way you're dealing with it. But this is something that you have to make the effort towards. But I do encourage you, find somebody to talk to that has done it successfully before. Okay, like if I desired to be a millionaire, the last thing to do would have been to talk to my father. My father was a brilliant man, very open-hearted, but he was not a millionaire. Therefore, he's not the person to talk to about it. Okay, I can tell you the paths that I can see millionaires being made, and I've literally talked to millionaires on how they themselves can make money. Okay, can make their money work more effectively. Myself, I never put a lot of weight in finances until, oddly enough, it's kind of like, closing the barn door after the horse left. I never started paying attention to the necessity of the finances until all of a sudden I found myself unemployed because they closed the company. Yeah, no, just to bring that up to speed there, Nathan, something else, like I know I don't start the show with Raven until 7 Pacific. Okay, so I got another half hour here, roughly. And then half an hour after that, I go on the show. I don't know if her show starts earlier. Okay. But do I have every intention on being there? Yes. What do I got here? I've only got 4 left, so I'll get those done. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I've only got 4 more that I've got to deal with, and that works out well. 4 more pictures to get done. I just submitted the other 5. I don't know if he's received them yet, but I can take a peek. Let us see. No, not yet. I know I sent it, but I haven't gotten a response yet to say that it got there. You know, one of the biggest things that I look at is this. Where are we here? That's not what I need. Oh, Lord. Lost it. There we are. You know, when we look at the issue that people's lives are going to come to a close, okay, the more prepared we are, okay, the more organized we are, the easier it will be for the people left behind. Okay, and this is why it is imperative that you talk to those you care about your wishes and about their desires regarding your stuff. Now, I will tell you this, okay, and I was really in a mixed bag with it to start with, but I was looking at it going, well, gee, I've got finances, and when the estate comes in, I can give it to the kids while they're alive. But it dawned on me because a friend of mine pointed it out. Hang on to the estate when it comes in. Make sure you live life. If there's stuff left over, that's great. Share your time with your loved ones. You cannot buy time. Well, you can buy a watch. Of course, in my case, you buy a watch and dies anyway. But the more communication you have, the more preparatory work you do to make that transition a little easier and a little bit more readily understood, the easier it's going to be to deal with the passing, even if it is a sudden, unexpected passing. Okay, now I'm going to throw something in the ring here, and I don't know. I've heard both sides, but if you believe what I saw on the internet, Simon Cowell from America's Got Talent and from American Idol, etc., according to the post I saw, passed away. Okay, due to a car accident. Now, there are people that are saying it was all fake. Personally, I doubt it is. Okay, he didn't have a lot of reason to fake his own death. Okay, but is it possible? Certainly. Okay, I will tell you this. I'm much happier when, like, a friend of mine a few years back, right, and even my nephew just a couple of years ago, instead of posting somebody died, they put a picture of their munchkin and went, "This is the new addition to my family." I'm much happier seeing that sort of thing on the front page of a news report, of a newspaper, of a Facebook page. I'd rather see, here's the things this person did. Like when my father passed, he left behind a really neat message, if you will, in a way. We always looked at Dad and went, if it needs building, he can build it. If he doesn't have the tool to build it, he'll build the tool and then build the things necessary. If he doesn't have the equipment to build the tool, he'll build the equipment, then build the tool, then build the item. There was nothing that I know of that my father couldn't build. Although I don't know if he ever got into nuclear reactions. But everybody has a talent. Okay, everybody has a strong suit. The trick is even with those that are passing before us. Focus on the positive things they have. Talk about the things you enjoyed with them. So those are the primary thoughts in your head when that person goes. And I will warn you about one little detail. You focus on what you enjoyed, but don't get caught up in the idea of, I'll never be able to do that again. Which is true, you won't. Of course, many of you will never see your 25th birthday again. Okay. And it's just a simple issue of, you pass it, you don't get to go back and go through it again. I know many of you, at least many of the people I was around at this age, 25 years old, they went through a second 25-year-old phase when they hit about 40. Yeah, they can be, Joe. This is why I figure, because I have a tendency of seeing what's coming, I figure, why not? I'm going to hold a wake about a week before I die. Of course, the after party after the funeral is a lot of fun, but the hangover after the after party, not so much. So I cured that problem. I just never sobered up. Not a good way of doing it, by the way. But that is a surefire hangover cure. You don't sober up, you never get a hangover. The other nice part about it is when one of the things I always encourage people, as close to always as I get, I encourage people to do when you're attending a funeral, be certain to focus on the things that were joyful in that person's life, not in the things that you're going to miss and that you're really unhappy about. The idea is to celebrate, as somebody put it earlier tonight, you celebrate that person's graduation going into a new life. Okay, this is the thing to look forward to. And yeah, even if you figure you're going to hell, I will tell you, in my opinion, the hot tubs are way too hot. But there's a lot of people you get to meet down there. And many of them you'll get down there and go, gee, I didn't know you'd have ended up in here. I always thought you were doing things the right way. Many people that claim to be doing everything by the book, so they're going to avoid ending up in hell, assuming they believe in heaven and hell, many of them end up in hell anyway, because of the fact they overlook some of the critical factors. There's only 3 laws that are paid attention to. Be true to yourself first, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and energy out, energy in. Okay, those are the 3 karmic laws. And if you look at the laws and the guidelines you follow, that you personally follow, I do feel you'll find they all fit inside that one, and those 3. If you live by one that doesn't fit inside those 3, I would love to hear about it personally. But like I said, the more we focus on communicating, on understanding what life is going to look like after an individual is gone, the easier it's going to be to cope with that passing. Well, that is extremely noisy. That's just the reality behind it. So I'm hoping this is making sense, guys. One of the things that we have to look at is virtually everybody I know of, virtually every corporeal, will go through the same thing. Somebody close to them will die. Okay, and they'll be left looking at it going, uh-oh. Joe, in all fairness, that's the funny thing. You will go to purgatory. Everybody that dies goes to purgatory. Then they decide then literally, and I know this from my standpoint, been there often enough. You get over there, and it's not until you get over there that you start deciding whether you're supposed to go to heaven or you're supposed to go to hell. Nobody passes judgment. You show up and go, I thought I was supposed to be in hell. Oh, that's downstairs on the right. Just go down. Or, or I watched one guy come in and it's like, I thought that when I died, I was just going to be in a coffin. I looked at the guy, and somebody looked at him and goes, coffins are down the hall. Just pick one. There's a whole pile of them down there. Just pick a coffin and climb in. So the guy climbs in. And this is after he died, by the way. The guy climbs into the coffin, lays there for a couple of minutes, and all of a sudden he pops his eyes open and goes, wait a minute. I voluntarily climbed into this thing. So he gets up and gets out. And it was at that point that he managed to make contact with a loved one he left behind. But you got to remember, the way it's put in the Bible is actually very accurate. When you pass away, a day over there is as 1,000 years over here. Okay, which means if you're looking at 4.5 years over there, you're looking at about 4.5 years over here. You're looking at about 5 minutes. About the length of time it takes to lay down, get comfortable, and go, this ain't working the way I was expecting. But there is no question there is life after death. Even for the souls, when a soul dies, yes, a soul can, like the body dies and leaves the soul on its own. But the soul can die. Okay, and there are all kinds of ways that can happen. Okay, I shouldn't say it dies, it just gets set back a bit. The reality of it is when you learn to cope with somebody passing, what has to happen is you've got to take a look at the way your world is and ask yourself, and I suggest you do this before you go. Okay, ask yourself, are you on the whole now treating people properly? See, Nathan, I tried watching Moon Knight, and it was just too convoluted for my end. I only got through, I think, 2 episodes of it, and it was just way too loopy. And that's not saying a lot coming from me, but I couldn't follow a track line on it. So much as I've seen a couple of episodes, I know the show. I honestly have not gone and watched a lot of it. I tried watching She-Hulk, and that too was too much like just a law show with superheroes in it. But well, it is, but on the other hand, I grew up with Marvel. Marvel is a much brighter viewpoint than DC. DC seems to take a much darker approach to things, which I got no problem with. And my brother used to read both. Matter of fact, he used to remember both, or more to the point, recall them. But I mean, it was brilliant the way the whole thing works out. But usually there's a plot line that I can follow. When you take a look at, it was a real twisted plot line. But when you take a look at Marvel Journey at Doctor Strange Journey into Madness, okay, very twisted plot, but easy enough to follow and easy enough to identify. Okay, I always look at it, and because of the number of times I've passed away, I look at this issue of what wasn't done before I went. Okay, I'll tell you the one thing, thankfully, they didn't do before I died was I've never actually been decapitated this lifetime. But I am seriously considering trying to get that shoved through on my will. Before you pronounce me dead, decapitate me to make sure you get it right this time. I don't think they're going to do that. I'm thinking there's going to be a problem with it. But who knows? It's one of those things I'll look at going, If they do it, that's great. And if they don't, well, oh well. I just hope I don't wake up after they put me in the ground. I got pretty close. I got to the morgue. Well, this is going to sound really loopy, Joe, but we'll go with their heart stopped. But much more importantly, in most cases, it's literally stress. Okay. Stress, in my opinion, is if you're looking for a primary cause, other than the unequivocal flatline issue, everybody literally dies ultimately because their heart quits. Okay, or almost everybody. Some of them die because the brain quits. Or, that actually doesn't mean they're dead. But if their brain quits, the heart will stop running. But no, most of it is because of trying to live a life that somebody else said is the way they're supposed to live. Okay, the reality of it is, and this is the thing many people are overlooking. Okay, and I mean men and women. First and foremost, women are of equal value. They should not, in my opinion, they should not be treated any differently than men from the standpoint of if they can do whatever job it is, give them credit for it, pay them whatever it is that you're paying everybody else. Okay. But women so often hold themselves back and bite their tongue because it's not polite to tell a guy where to go. Well, I will absolutely agree it is not. Okay. But on the flip side of that, what's the difference between a woman telling a guy where to go and a guy telling a guy where to go, or a guy telling a woman where to go? Do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. Most women end up they age too quickly for their own body because of the stress. And I'm not talking the stress of delivering a kid, although that is a stress I wouldn't want. I'd love to know who the genius was that came up with the idea that, gee, let's see if a man can carry a baby. Why? Like, what did nature do wrong that you gotta play with that game? Okay. Now again, I am no statistician, as in I've never done the research and looked up the records on any government site or any research study on it. But the thing that I've noticed with women more than men is women, they bottle so much that their heart gives out. Okay. And I don't know which is more frequent, whether women have more strokes or men do. Okay. But I do know that if people keep pushing women to stay inside a mold, okay, and women keep bowing to that, and I don't mean you should go out and turn the world upside down and go, I don't identify as being a woman. Sorry, guys, genetics play a pretty big role in your gender, okay, but it's trying to psychologically live in a world that is not letting women do so, that is causing a lot of the problem. Okay, it's really sad when you think that women are told you're supposed to let your emotions show, but if they do, they get chastised for it. Guys, you gotta make up your mind. Do you want your female partner, or your female friend? Do you desire them to show their emotions, or do you desire them to clam up? Because you can't have it both ways. Kind of like women have got to get it through their head that men cannot be really sensitive and really hard-nosed at the same time. You can balance the two, but this idea of chastising people because they're not doing things in the same fashion as you think they should, that is what is causing a lot of the internal stress. I was talking to a kid the other day, and he pointed out something really remarkable. He says, the kids that are performing the school shootings, aren't doing it because they want to hurt a bunch of people. They're doing it because their concerns are being totally ignored. And you look at the state the world is in right now. Okay, and there's going to be a lot more death yet. But then you got to understand. Okay, and think of it this way. We have now over 8 billion people on the planet. I think it was about 30 years ago, we only had 7 billion. Well, we've got another billion people. Of course, there is going to be more death. Okay, this just stands to reason. It's simple math. More birth, more death. The number one cause of death in adults is birth. Because I will tell you this. I don't mean they die at birth. I mean they get born, they live, they die. If they weren't born, they wouldn't die. It's just that simple. And yeah, it's a bit oversimplified, but what the heck? Okay, so when you're looking at striving to cope with a loved one passing, communication and talking about your concerns, your desires, plans you would like to see happen, even once your loved one is gone. Involve them in it now. Involve them in the planning. Okay. Not only will it mean that you're sharing it with them, but it also means they get to share in your excitement. And that in and of itself may be all the incentive they need to stick around for a while. See, I'm a firm believer that my grandmother lived as long as she did because my uncle lived at home. Okay. Because she had something to do after her husband passed. She lived another 25 years after her husband passed away. But I am a firm believer that happened because her son stayed living at home with her. That's just the reality of it. And when you look at that aspect, okay, the more you communicate, the more aware you are of your loved one's desires for their afterlife, and your desires for their afterlife. Bear in mind, you're going to be on two different sides of the same veil. Okay, but the more you understand about that, the easier it's going to be to cope, and the easier it'll be to transition between having that person there and moving on with your own life without them. It's a real rough one when you get to a point. My mom's only been gone now 4 years. Well, it'll be 4 years in July. Okay. And I'm still kicking myself for not having pieced things together before she passed. I strongly encourage you, do not let this be your fate. It's your choice whether you reach out. Okay. But you got to remember, your parents or your loved ones, they are their own individual. You have to learn to take them as is. Now, obviously, if they are being abusive, reaching out and hoping, and going, well, I was encouraged to reach out. Sure you are, but do not put yourself in the direct line of fire. Okay, sometimes you have to look at a relationship and just go, it's not worth the effort anymore. Okay. The nice part about it is we do have the opportunity to make this world a better place for everybody. Okay, but it requires communication. It requires the effort and the focus to let people know what your boundaries are, what your goals are. Okay, one of the things, and I've sort of got it written out already, what will happen to some of the stuff I've got. Because much of it I'm looking at going, yeah, it's stuff that matters to me. But really, I pass away. Do I really need to specify where that goes? It's paint. Somebody can sort it out. Now, often people will not desire to talk about the things that what's going to happen after somebody passes away. It can be rough when you look in the mirror and go, I'm talking as though my parents are dying. Well, news, they are. Okay. And best to talk about it before they pass than it is to talk about it after. Okay. Now, guys, we are down to the last 5 minutes here. Okay. Just before I go any further, let me just double check this. Tomorrow I won't be on. But on the 24th, we're going to be looking at how to cope with a suspected abduction or a confirmed encounter with an off-worlder, with a member of an ancient race. We're going to talk about how to cope with that. Tonight, in half an hour, I'm going into the rabbit hole with Raven. Okay. And we're going to talk about who knows what. We'll figure that out when I get there. Okay. But that said, I'm going to bring this to a close. I will be back again on Friday. Until then, guys, take care of yourselves and each other. And for pity's sakes, stay positive.